You're tuned into News Now on KFUG Community Radio, 101.1 FM and streaming online at kfugradio.org. This co-production between KFUG, the Wild Rivers Outpost, and Redwood Voice is bringing you the latest happenings right here in Del Norte County. On tonight's stories, a lot of news from Del Norte High School as deliberations of how school will operate during the pandemic after winter break is discussed, especially in light of the recently released frighteningly low grade statistics of numerous high school students. Jason Greeno takes on the job of Crescent City Mayor. Assemblyman Jim Wood discusses a few things with the City Council, including COVID-19 vaccines and broadband networks. All this and much more on tonight's News Now. For KFUG Community Radio, I am Persephone Rose. I'm joined by Avi Critz and Gwendolyn Rose Lucas. First things first, the COVID-19 update. News on the COVID situation as it stands right now, like you've come to expect. This information was written and valid as of December 14th, so be aware of any changes that may have come since then. Upon writing this, there have been a total of 571 confirmed cases in Del Norte County. That is up 258 since our last report on News Now, when it was at 313. There are currently 149 active cases. 11,214 tests have been administered. There are currently 2 hospitalizations, and in total we have experienced 12 hospitalizations throughout the duration of the pandemic. There's been a total of 1 death due to COVID-19 during the pandemic. All of this is according to the Information Hub on the Del Norte County Public Health's website. If you would like to further track this information, you can find it at covid19.dnco.org. Yes, that's right, our COVID-19 numbers are not only higher than they've ever been, but they are growing at quite a rapid pace, and will likely continue to do so. Now more than ever, it is important to remember the health and safety guidelines of the pandemic: social distancing, staying at home, wearing your mask, especially in this time of non-believers, COVID deniers, and those who would let their own ego and pride get in the way of our community's safety.
Del Norte's K-8 students will return to campus on January 4th, despite many of their peers in Humboldt County taking an extra 2 weeks to quarantine following the holidays. The Del Norte School District Board of Trustees reached its conclusion on Thursday after hearing from parents who said it felt like their children were being punished for others' worries about the coronavirus. Staff, however, were worried about their co-workers and how their jobs would be covered if they needed to quarantine after the holidays. Paige Thompson, lead negotiator for the Del Norte Teachers Association, said she was absent for 2 days before Thanksgiving break, with no one to cover for her. That shortage in substitutes continues, Thompson said. When we come back on January 4th, every available adult in the district should be ready to sub, she said. I know Mrs. Harris has subbed some, Colleen Parker has subbed some. The district administration should clear their calendars for 2 weeks so we have coverage. DNTA met with representatives of the local California School Employee Association chapter and district administration Wednesday to discuss returning to school after the holidays. On Thursday, DNUSD Superintendent Jeff Harris mentioned that while Humboldt County's public health officer advised districts to engage in distance learning for the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving and 2 weeks after Christmas, Del Norte County's public health officer offered no opinion one way or the other. He was more along the lines of, we need to make sure that mitigations are in place, that we're taking things seriously, along the lines of masking and physical distancing and cohorting, Harris said. Harris claimed DNTA and CSEA members wanted to ensure the cohorting and social distancing protocols were tightened up following the break. We want to minimize to the fullest extent possible people going from class to class, Harris said. That way, we are focusing on making sure classes aren't doing... Harris said that we are focusing on making sure classes aren't doing things in the same time in the same spaces. We may come back to rain. We'll have to watch out for what's going on in gyms. This discussion came after the district urged families traveling or hosting loved ones from out of the area during Thanksgiving to take 2 weeks of self-isolation before sending their children back to school. On Thursday, Harris, who coined the slogan "Hands, Face, and Space," said that if students do come back on January 4th, it will be up to the district to hammer the message home. It will also be up to the district to urge families to keep their kids home if they've been exposed to someone infected with COVID-19, or if they have traveled or hosted someone from out of the area. Sarah Mitchell, vice president of CSEA's Great Northern 178, which represents DNUSD's classified staff, said there were many staff absences following Thanksgiving break, and those that remained were put into multiple classrooms. This has happened more often, especially since people are resigning, Mitchell said, adding that there are about 61 vacant classified positions currently. What's happening right now is that the staff that remain are being asked to mix with more and more cohorts and submit to exposure to more and more people, she said. If we know schools are going to close due to lack of staff, how do we mitigate that? What's best for kids is that they are in school. Marcus Endert, who works at Smith River School, echoed Mitchell's concerns, saying it's difficult to find classified staff. I've heard some of the discussion. Likewise, there seems to be a double standard for teachers versus the rest of the community, he said. What the community needs to understand is we're considered to be essential workers. As a matter of principle, I'll have my children self-quarantine for the first 2 weeks. Several parents argued for having their children come back to school on January 4th, saying their students' grades had fallen during distance learning. One parent, Amber Gonsalves, a state employee, said her employer closes down the office and sanitizes it, and then she's back to work the following day if there's a COVID-19 exposure. Our kids shouldn't be held to a lesser standard than me as an adult that suffers more from the virus, she said. We should be going forward, not backwards. Jessica Curry, whose son has special needs, said he is unable to get those needs met via Zoom. She said she worked with school administration to get her son a new instructional assistant who he responded to, but since COVID-19, he's been struggling. To Curry, extending the break will give some people more opportunity to party. There are people that follow the rules. I'm one of them, she said. I'm going on vacation on Sunday and I'll be gone a week. That way, my children can quarantine before they go back to school. Summer Fitch, whose husband is a teacher and has 2 children in DNUSD's K-8 schools and 1 in high school, also advocated for the younger students to go back to the classroom. She pointed out that there's a long period of time between Christmas Day and January 4th. For those that aren't comfortable with having their youngsters back in class, Fitch said, they can go on independent study. My suggestion is to make those packets available on the Monday of return and make it easy for parents to choose to keep their kids home for those 2 weeks, or 1 week, or whatever it is. But for people that are comfortable or who didn't travel out of the area, those children should not be subject to punishment and banned from school when they follow all the rules.
Before laying out potential plans for bringing more kids back to Delnor High School, Principal Allison Eckert shared a grim statistic with the Board of Trustees. The number of students receiving D's and F's increased by more than 50% over last year. During the first 6-week grading period for the 2020-21 school year, 60% of DNHS students received D's and F's, according to Eckert. She didn't yet have the statistics for the second grading period, pointing out that it had just ended, but Eckert said they were bleak too. Delnor High School students weren't alone in struggling academically during the COVID-19 pandemic, but, Eckert pointed out, that's a small comfort. She explained, quote, I care about Delnor. I realized during the first 6 weeks we had a lot of tech difficulty. We didn't have tech in the hands of our kids. We struggled. Students are just saying they're tired. They want to see friends. They're tired of the screen. It is not the same as having an in-person education. End quote. Wanting to allow for as much flexibility as possible, the Delnor Unified School District Board of Trustees adopted a model that will allow students to see their first, second, and third period instructors in person twice a week for 9 weeks starting in the second semester. During the subsequent 9-week period, students would be in their 4th, 5th, and 6th period classes twice a week. According to Eckert, this would reduce in-person student contacts with instructors by half, even though they would see every teacher twice a week. It would allow for more meaningful contact, deeper learning, and more enrichment, she said. The afternoon would be set aside for interventions, enrichment, career technical education classes, performing arts, and support for special education students. There would be no lunch period. Eckert said she'd also like to keep a fluid in and out option in case a student is exposed to COVID-19 and needs to isolate. They will be able to continue their studies via Zoom, the Google Classroom, or Canvas learning management platforms, and can communicate with their teachers during their office hours. After meeting with more than 150 people, including students, Eckert and her teachers created 13 drafts of plans to incorporate more in-person learning at the high school. There was also concern about whether students will wear masks, as well as constructing a schedule that takes into consideration older siblings who care for younger siblings, Eckert said. DNUSD's K-8 students returned to the classroom in a blended learning model incorporating both in-person and online instructions on October 5th. However, though DNHS allowed small cohorts to come back on campus for enrichment, electives, and other supports, most students engaged in their classes via distance learning. While some students are thriving in distance learning, Eckert said the increase in failing grades occurred during that portion of the school year. Noting that the plans for bringing more students back to campus were the product of several stakeholder meetings, including with students, Eckert said there was an idea about bringing in the struggling kids first, followed by those who are more comfortable in distance learning. She noted that there are classrooms at the high school that could be used for those who need internet access or more specialized enrichment. During the school board meeting, there was also discussion about COVID-19 transmission among adolescents and younger children. Earlier in Thursday's meeting, Harris said children whose parents keep them at home because they have been exposed to the novel coronavirus will not be marked absent. They will be able to enroll in the district's independent study program and can still participate and complete the same work via Zoom. Charlotte Zavolos, a special education teacher at the high school, said she had concerns about the 9-week block schedule that was proposed. She said it would be difficult working within a student's individualized education plan if they haven't seen them either in person or digitally for up to 9 weeks. Eckert pointed out that she didn't like the 9-week block option that was presented at first. She said the afternoon could be devoted to making up for any learning loss students may have experienced at the beginning of the year, but Eckert noted that even if the perfect model were selected, the D's and F's might not magically disappear. Eckert also noted the high school has a policy that allows students to change classes within the first 2 weeks of a semester, a policy that could be implemented under the new learning model.
Delaware County supervisors will allow a housing development to move forward despite Planning Commission's concerns regarding stormwater runoff. The board's 4-1 vote on Tuesday overturned a Planning Commission decision in October preventing NATO Flores from using a pond to control stormwater at the 1.25-acre parcel at 1600 North Crest Drive he is developing. District 1 Supervisor Roger Gitlin dissented. The Delaware County Planning Commission required the Los Angeles-based developer to construct a means of diverting runoff to the existing storm drainage systems. The stipulation, Flores said, made the project unfeasible. I made sure I hired an engineer who knew the area, who had done this particular design before in the area, Flores told supervisors on Tuesday, referring to Crescent City-based Stover Engineering. And we're using permeable surfaces everywhere, so when water does fall into the driveways or sidewalks, they are permeable and water will go right through them. I feel this is a more environmentally friendly solution because we don't have to put additional load onto the existing stormwater system if we can absorb it right into the property. Flores' property currently has 1 3-bedroom house and 8 studio bungalows. His goal is to build 15 more 1-bedroom cottages and a laundry room. Flores also proposed upgrading the electrical power from a 200 amp service to an 800 amp service, connecting the property to Crescent City's water and sewer systems, constructing a new driveway, and renovating 3 bungalows. He requested a zoning change from a combination of residential and commercial to planned community, which allowed for a total of 19 dwellings on the property, with a total of 24 units on the property, 4 of which will be reserved for low-income households. The Planning Commission granted Flores a conditional use permit on May 1st, 2019, requiring that he demonstrate how stormwater runoff from a 25-year event could be collected and diverted into the existing drainage system. This requirement differed from Flores' proposal to construct a retention pond on the property with the goal of avoiding adding costs. Late in 2019, Flores submitted an amendment to use his permit asking planned commissions to rethink their requirement regarding diversion of stormwater into existing drainage systems. After challenges and delays due to COVID-19, the Planning Commission denied Flores' request for an amendment on October 7, 2020, with one commissioner, Keith Resad, recusing himself. On Tuesday, County Planner Taylor Harsley told supervisors that planning commissioners raised concerns about children getting into the proposed retention pond, as well as material such as lawn clippings reducing its capacity to contain stormwater. The project's engineer, Ryan Young, said a fence could be built around the pond to prevent access. Flores also offered to sign a maintenance agreement so the pond would continue to be effective. A neighbor's opposition to an on-site retention pond may have also played a role in the Planning Commission's denial of Flores' request, Carly said. Those neighbors, Jerry and Rebecca Young, submitted a letter to the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday opposing Flores' plan to develop the 1600 North Crest Drive property. In this letter, the Youngs stated Flores had promised to build a 6-foot cement wall after removing a fence of theirs that was over the property line. They also stated that Flores' property is much higher than theirs and consequently runoff would drain onto their property during heavy rains. There's less area for water to be naturally absorbed, they said. A settling pool is a breeding place for mosquitoes. There's no assurance it would even work. On Tuesday, Flores told supervisors that the Young's fence was 15 feet onto his property and needed to be moved back to the original property line. He proposed constructing a temporary fence in January before building a concrete wall as part of the Planning Commission's conditions. Flores said the retention pond he is proposing will be 12 inches deep with an area of 1,200 square feet. It would slope gently and become part of the lawn. A lawn service would come twice a month to maintain the property, he said. You won't even be able to see it unless you really look for it, Flores told supervisors. Board Chair Jerry Hemmingson praised Flores' efforts to clean up the property and willingness to build low-income housing, but Gatland said he didn't like overturning the Plan Commission's decision, noting that Flores was appealing to county supervisors a second time. Gatland also asked Flores about the type of construction that would be used for some of the proposed housing units. I've heard from a number of your neighbors, and not just Mr. Young, but other neighbors to the south of you, that they're none too happy with the kind of construction you are about to engage in, Gatland said. I have these concerns to consider in terms of the impact of the neighborhood in which you're developing additional housing. Though I do appreciate the housing shortages, I'm not sure this is the answer to the question. Flores said he planned to build one-bedroom dwelling units using two 20-foot-high cube shipping containers that are adjacent to each other. They will have a pitched roof with gable ends, Flores said. They won't look like shipping containers, but one-bedroom cottages with windows and doors. Those structures will be partially built in a factory, finished on site, and will undergo a building inspection. They're going to look like typical one-bedroom cottages, he said. They're going to be very pleasant looking, actually. Carsley said the project will have to comply with the California Building Code. Gatland, however, referred to the Planning Commission's decision, pointing out that no one supported his proposal. I think that's telling, and is a message to you to come back and return the project to the Planning Commission in a way that doesn't come to the attention of the purview of the Board of Supervisors, Gatland said, on a 4-0 vote. Hemmingson noted that planning commissions didn't raise concerns about how the development would be built, but about some storm drainage. He noted that Flores was just looking for an alternative way to make his project work better financially. He's not asking for something special as far as the building. He's only asking for a different solution to the drainage, Hemingway said.
Opening the local swimming pool isn't an option right now, but Crescent City hopes a new aquatic supervisor will be able to start in January. City Manager Eric Weir told the City Council, including new members Alex Campbell and Bo Smith, that staff made a conditional offer to a candidate for the position. The new hire will begin obtaining the necessary certifications and training after the first of the year, he said. With Del Norte County in the most restrictive purple tier on California's blueprint for a safer economy, opening the pool isn't possible. In regards to this, Weir said, quote, "It's not until we drop down to orange that we can start talking about the pool and opening up the pool," end quote. Weir also brought up a new regional approach by the state to issue stay-at-home orders if the availability of intensive care unit beds dropped below 15%. When that announcement first came down, Weir said Northern California, which includes Del Norte County, was one of the worst regions. That has changed since then. However, Weir pointed out that the ICU availability doesn't just apply to COVID-19 cases. Weir's presentation prompted Campbell to ask him about the root cause of the uptick in COVID-19 cases locally, and Smith to ask if the state takes the number of ICU beds available in Medford, Oregon, into consideration. Weir, citing Del Norte County Public Health Officer Dr. Warren Raywalt, said small family gatherings are thought to be the driver of the uptick in COVID-19 transmissions, both locally and across California. As for ICU capacity in Medford, Weir said he didn't think California officials look at the capacity in Oregon. As one of his final actions as Crescent City mayor, Blake Inscore asked if Raywalt and Sutter Coast Hospital CEO Mitch Hanna could give a presentation to the new city council. At its November 16th meeting, Weir promised to let the city council know the latest updates to reopening the Fred Endert Municipal Pool. The pool was shuttered in March after the Crescent City Council declared a local emergency due to COVID-19.
The new Crescent City Council took a final step Monday to officialize the voter-approved 1% sales tax increase for public safety. The decision, however, led to a discussion among newer council members over whether using a consultant to help audit city finances, review tax records, and make budget projections was a wise use of taxpayer money. "We spend a lot of our money on consultant fees," said Councillor Alexander Campbell, who, along with his colleagues Bew Smith and Jason Greener, took the oath of office as elected officials on Monday. "I think we can do better at figuring out for ourselves. We are a tight community. We want to respond to each other. We want to work with each other, and I think we can do a better job at limiting fees." Crescent City voters approved Measure S with a 64.5% majority. City Attorney Martha Rice said, "Though the ordinance takes effect immediately, the 1% sales tax won't be collected until April 1st, 2021, with Crescent City receiving the first remittance from the state in June of 2021. Though Measure S is expected to generate about $1.3 million annually for the city's general fund, those dollars are earmarked for Crescent City's fire and rescue transition to a hybrid fire department, enabling the Crescent City Police Department to maintain staffing levels, repair roads and potholes, and to keep the Fred Endert Municipal Pool operational." According to Rice, about 0.57% of the revenue from Measure S, roughly $7,000 annually, will be retained by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, which collects local taxes and distributes them. Along with approving the ordinance, the council approved agreements with the State Department of Tax and Fee Administration, including authorizing the city manager to sign an agreement with the state for preparation, administration, and operation of the sales tax. Compensation for that work is also included, Rice said, though staff don't yet know what that will be. In the past 5 years, the cost has been as low as $3,900 for the City of Angels camp, as high as $18,500 for the City of Sacramento. There's a range. It sounds like it depends on how many different districts have new taxes. There is a cap of $175,000, but it does not sound as if it will be reasonable to get anywhere near that amount. The second agreement covers the 0.57% administration fee that will come out of the revenue of Measure S, Royce said. The council also authorized City Manager Eric Weir and Finance Director Linda Lever to work with Hindelitter de Lamas and Associates to examine the city's sale tax records, which prompted Campbell to ask why staff using HDL was necessary. Lever told Campbell that the city has been working with HDL for several years. The consultant provides staff with quarterly revenue projections and economic trend forecasts for various local business sectors, also looking for errors in sales tax revenues and getting those revenues to the city if anything was missed, she said. Last fiscal year, Crescent City paid $4,500 for HGL in its services. The consultant recovered at least $8,400 in revenue to the city, she said. Weir also pointed out that without Measure S, Sales tax revenue accounted for 25% of the city's total general funding. A 10% difference in projections could equate to a $130,000 loss for the city, he said. Campbell expressed concern about the amount of money spent on consultant fees, saying, "Some things we can figure out ourselves." Listening to Miss Lever, it seems like we can have a discussion about where the faults are. We don't need to spend that money on consultant fees. Smith echoed Campbell's sentiments about the city spending a lot of money on consultants. "There's so much money we're supposed to get," he said, referring to Measure S revenues. Crescent City Mayor Blake Inscore, however, disagreed. Crescent City has limited resources and staff, he argued. Having an outside party look at the city to evaluate a new sales tax is a benefit, he stated. "I think it provides the community with a greater sense of security that somebody else is looking at this and evaluating this other than just our own staff," he said. Greeno, who would take over the role of mayor later in the meeting, said that there are benefits to having a consultant look at the city's finances. "They've cut things that weren't necessarily classified the right way, which can translate to us not getting the funds we really should be getting. We probably would have missed those if we didn't have the consultants looking over our shoulder at our finances." On Tuesday, the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors unanimously approved the ordinance, placing Measure R, its 1% sales tax increase for public safety, on the books, with 5,018 yes votes to 4,971 no votes. Said sales tax generates about $1.2 million for a variety of services put towards fixing potholes, streets, maintaining emergency dispatch services, and mitigating blight and public nuisances. Supervisors also authorized County Administration Officer Jay Serena to sign similar agreements with the State Department of Tax and Fee Administration to administer and distribute the tax revenue.
Del Norte's representative in the state assembly made a digital appearance in front of county supervisors Tuesday, discussing COVID-19, wildfire prevention, healthcare, and broadband access in Northern California. District 2 Assemblyman Jim Wood expressed his appreciation for Del Norte County Public Health Officer Dr. Warren Raywalt, as well as Lori Cowan and Roger Gitlin, who attended their final meeting as county supervisor last Tuesday. Wood also spoke with county supervisors after introducing two bills, AB 9, which seeks to expand state wildfire prevention efforts, and AB 41, which modifies the state's Dig Once policy and seeks to expedite the deployment of broadband infrastructure. Wood said he was especially concerned about students who are unable to be in a classroom due to COVID-19. He said, quote, "Certainly in the Crescent City area, we've got really good or better than most broadband access. A lot of areas outside of town don't. We're working with the State Superintendent of Education, Tony Thurmond, to get more broadband coverage out there. We are, as an assembly, making broadband a huge priority moving forward." End quote. Calling 2020 one of the most horrible years for all Californians, Wood said his constituents in Sonoma County had to weather public safety power shutoffs, as well as revenue and budget setbacks due to the pandemic. Wood urged Del Norters to continue to wear masks and socially distance, saying the impacts of COVID-19 could be minimized if everyone did that. He said, quote, "We have serious concerns about this because of the size of some of our smaller counties. Del Norte County does not have the ICU capacity Oakland or San Francisco or Los Angeles does. A few cases in the ICU will quickly overwhelm the healthcare system in Del Norte County." End quote. Following Wood's presentation, District 5 Supervisor Bob Berkowitz asked the Assemblyman what input he has in the health and safety mandate coming from Governor Gavin Newsom. Wood replied that he has zero input. Quote, "We really have not been engaged on a lot of these decisions. We often find out a few minutes before a proclamation is going to happen. I'm chair of the Health Committee and I have a healthcare background and 5 years experience as chair of the committee, but we have not been consulted on a lot of these and I consistently ask for information and the data to support the science and I've been very frustrated." End quote. Berkowitz's colleague, District 3 Supervisor Chris Howard, brought up the impact COVID-19 has had on students. He pointed out that students in Del Norte County already struggled due to the county's remoteness and are now falling behind even further. Howard said, quote, "In speaking with many educators in our system over the last several months, several comments were made to me that we might as well have not even started this school year. Our kids need to be back in class. Can we look for your help with getting vaccinations to our teachers as essential workers, essentially on the front lines of ensuring our children can have equal access to education? Up here with our demographic, it's quite essential these kids get back to school." End quote. Wood told Howard he would push as hard as he can on that. According to the Assemblyman, the Governor's Office and the California Department of Public Health will use a tiered system to disseminate vaccinations. The emphasis will be on frontline healthcare workers and residents in skilled nursing facilities, which account for 40% of COVID-19 deaths in California. The California Assembly has also been dealing with homelessness, housing, and substance abuse issues, Wood told supervisors. Legislators are also awaiting a U.S. Supreme Court decision involving the Affordable Care Act. Wood said if the Supreme Court invalidates the ACA, it would be a $20 billion budget hit to the state. Wood was re-elected to the state assembly last month, beating Del Norte County special education teacher Charlotte Zvolos. Hey everyone, it's Persephone here, breaking out of the news segment just a bit to leave you with a good old call to action. We live in strange times, even on a local level in our small county. Okay, at this point, can we get some dramatic music? Oh, cool, thank you. Listen, Del Norte County has had problems for a long time. The county has also had plenty of good things for a long time. And for a long time, it's had a lot of things that just kind of slip under the radar altogether. The kind of things you don't hear about till someone takes the time to bring it up. And you know what else has been around for a long time? Redwood Voice. No, seriously, it's been around even longer than your beloved radio station, KFUG Community Radio. And it's looked very different as time has gone on, each year basically bringing a new iteration of the program. Our mission has always been amplifying voices, bringing a light to things, using various forms of media and production to ultimately drive movements, change, and at the bare minimum, spread information throughout our community, like the newscast you're listening to right now. And we can't do that alone. I mean, come on, for the longest time we've had a team of 2 people and we're just training our 3rd member. We have a lot on our plate with hopes to do even more, but to get to even bigger and better things, our team needs to grow. And with that also means local youth getting involved in bigger and better things, winky face. So yes, that's right, Redwood Voice is hiring and expanding, in search of youths experienced and or just plain interested in working with media. No, don't shrug it off. Don't say this doesn't include you. Stop that. If you're a youth who either has experience or, again, just plain interest in working with media, we want to hear from you. There are plenty of roles to fill. Writers, video editors, audio editors, copy editors, all manners of production going on and the means to do it. So let's talk. Let's see if we have something for you. You can contact us at any point from a number of places. Message us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/redwoodvoice.dnatl. Email us at redwoodvoicedn@gmail.com. We have an Instagram at redwood.voice and a Twitter at redwoodvoice, where you can also message us. We hope to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in to News Now. To hear more episodes of our newscast, check out kfugradio.org or our YouTube channel. Special thanks to Wild Rivers Outpost and Jessica Sanar, Crescent City Bureau Chief, for providing great content. Tune in 2 weeks from now to KFUG Community Radio 101.1 FM or stream online on kfugradio.org to hear more news from your favorite local radio station. This newscast was edited by Persephone Rose. The voices of this newscast were Persephone Rose, Avi Critz, Gwendolyn Rose,